Around the world, renewable energy is shaping how communities power their lives, offering cleaner, more sustainable alternatives in the face of climate change and energy poverty. From Asia to sub Saharan Africa, off grid solutions and decentralized systems are helping close long standing electricity gaps, particularly in underserved regions. Over the past year, Nigeria has made measurable strides in renewable energy access, especially in rural communities that have historically lacked reliable power. From solar mini grids powering households in Nasarawa and Niger states to renewable energy systems supporting local clinics and markets, these developments increasingly reflect not just progress but data backed impact. At the center of many of these interventions is the Rural Electrification Agency, the REA, which continues to play a leading role in coordinating and implementing national electrification efforts from design and deployment to performance tracking. Through initiatives like the Nigeria Electrification Project and the $750 million DARES program supported by the World Bank and African Development Bank, REA is working with private developers and local stakeholders to deploy thousands of decentralized energy systems, each tied to indicators like household connections, uptime, and productive use. In communities like Rafin Zurufi, where residents are said to have gone without power for decades, the solar mini grid now makes up for the deficit. And in Rubochi and Ikwa, also in Abuja, the mini grids are reportedly making a difference in daily living. Beyond rural communities, the Energizing Education program, also implemented by REA, is transforming learning environments. Over 30 federal universities and teaching hospitals, including the Yakubu Gowon University, formerly known as the University of Abuja, have already benefited or are in line to receive solar or hybrid systems, each installation supported by tools to monitor performance, usage, and long-term sustainability. From underserved villages to academic campuses, Nigeria's renewable energy story is no longer about infrastructure alone. It's about systems that are installed, monitored, and made to last. Progress isn't just being promised, it's being powered, tracked, and scaled. Across the world, mini grids are changing the way communities access power, bringing electricity to places the central grid may never reach. From remote villages to vital institutions, they offer cleaner, more reliable alternatives that can spark economic and social transformation. Here in Nigeria, where millions still live in darkness, mini grids are becoming a key part of the national energy strategy. Projects are already underway, from rural farming communities to universities, and some are already delivering results. But what does it take to make these systems work? Who funds them? Who builds them? And more importantly, who keeps them running? Today on Untangle, we're taking a closer look at the rise of off-grid and mini-grid power and why it just might be one of the most practical answers to the energy puzzle. Welcome to Untangle. I am Amadine Ubewe. Now, welcome back. We have been joined now by senior energy consultant engineer Olajide Adebayo. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go straight into it.
All right.
The push for off-grid, mini-grid systems, how does it come into play with the national energy strategy?
All right. Let me start by saying that mini grid just starts springing up. It's not just some person's crazy idea to just start building mini grid. It was on the back of the Paris Agreement that was signed or adopted in 2015. What we have today, or what we know today as the nationally determined contribution. Every nation of the world globally agreed to reduce the climate, the climate change to 1.5. And on that back, Nigeria developed what we know as the Energy Transition Plan. And in there, Nigeria commits to net zero by 2060. In NDC was agreed upon as a short term. It was meant to achieve, reduce the business as usual emission by 47%, so as to achieve that net zero by 2060. So on this two policy document was mini grid built. I would like to even say off-grid solutions, right? Immediately after the 2015 NDC was adopted, there was a mini grid regulation that came into being just to provide a regulatory framework and environment for investors to come in. And I would say that was what changed the entire ecosystem. And mini grid come into being to not only reduce the emission, that's the greenhouse gases, but also to close the electrification rates. Everywhere you see a mini grid spring up, one of the things that you are certain of is that there is a displacement of a diesel generator and also a displacement of maybe a petrol generator. In that light, you are reducing the emission. In the other angle, you are closing electrification rates. That community cannot be regarded as unelectrified any longer. It's now electrified. So mini grid or off-grid solution, be it solar home systems, be it standalone systems, they are pivotal to achieving the decarbonization goals because they help to achieve that faster because they are modular. So you can always go to rural communities, put them there or install them. And before you know it, you've electrified 1,000 household, 2,000 household. If you have to wait for the grid, that might take another 10, 20 years. So I'll say that mini grid is at the center of the decarbonization strategy and also closing the electrification gap.
Yeah, basically you're supplying power and it's clean energy.
Yeah, very clean.
So what about the business aspect of this? Is the concept of mini grids, off grids, is it financially viable? Do we see investors coming in? Is this something that attracts them?
Yeah, I would say that it's financially viable, given that the last number I tracked, we have over 130 developers, right? If it's not financially viable, you won't have that number, right? But there are conditions to it. There are gaps that exist. Today in Nigeria, we have over 85 million Nigerians that have no access to electricity, right? That's a huge market for mini grid because the grid cannot close that number as fast as the mini grid. And beyond that opportunity that exists in the gap, there are conditions, there are things that need to happen before a mini grid can become financially viable. The first thing there is the technical aspect of it. It must be modular, right?
What do you mean by that?
Modular means that it's small. It's something you can move.
Okay.
So if you have to extend the grid, what it takes you to extend the grid, it's huge, right? But what it takes you to just build a mini grid is very small, right? And as modular as it is, it must also be scalable. So what I mean is a community demand today might be a 50 kilowatt peak, right? So you bring in a 50 kilowatt peak mini grid and you install. But immediately a mini grid come into being, what you typically see is there will be economy activities. The demand will grow beyond the 50 kilowatt peak. So you typically want to scale it up. That's why I said it must be scalable. If your system is not scalable, what that will cost you is you have to remove what you installed before and bring in another 100. But that is not, that doesn't make any business sense. So whatever system you are installing today must be scalable for it to be financially viable. And beyond being scalable, your financing also must be a blended finance because the start of a mini grid, it's quite capital intensive, right? And if you pass down to the customer, it might not be affordable given that typically when mini grid is being installed today is in the rural communities where economic activities is not all that bubbling. So your tariff must make sense to them, right? So for your tariff to make sense, your cost must make sense because tariff is typically cost over the energy, right? So you must have access to blended finance. So you must, a part of your financing must be grant, a part of it must be concessional loan. Your last resort should be a commercial loan, given the high interest rates, right? So once it meets those two conditions. Another condition that I think is also very important is that your community engagement must be very strong and sustainable. So you don't go into a community and act as if you're a stranger. Right, you must engage them. You must make them understand why they need what you want to install. You must also have a training plan for the community indigene, just in a way that they see you as part of them. So they see beyond that you are bringing that light bulb on. They see that you are empowering that young boy, that young girl on the streets with a job. He now earns a salary. He now has where to go to do his 9 to 5 or whatever it is, right? That will make it very viable. Another thing is that for your mini grid to be viable, there must be anchor customers. We call them anchor customers because they basically you are building it on the back of those customers. So you will not want to build a mini grid where it's typically residential. And why I say that is because if it's typically residential, the tariff might be discouraging. But you must have customers that are using that electricity for productive use. Right. So when there are anchor customers, be it agro-processing plant, it could be irrigation, it could be barbing saloon, it could be somebody that is using that electricity to generate income, right? Once you have that, then you can be sure that it will be sustainable because they will not want electricity to go because it's cheaper for them to use it to run their business than all the alternatives. So all these conditions, if met, definitely mini grid are financially viable in Nigeria.
Well, that's good to hear when you break it down that way. So I guess the next thing is, you mentioned when talking about sources of revenue or funding, so to speak, you mentioned grants and thereabouts.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the collaborations we see when we hear mention of the AFDB, World Bank? You know, we've heard of what we call the Mission 300 and all such issues. What was the deeper aspects of this, if you can break it down for the average person to understand?
So when you hear about Development Partners Fund, what they typically do is they come in, it's a loan to the nation, but not a loan to the developer. So the nation takes the loan. Mission 300 that's to electrify 300 million Africa. Yeah. And Nigeria took a chunk of it, right? So it's not as if AFDB was having a good day, right? And they went to structure some money from nowhere and push it into Africa. No, they are loaning it to the nation. So in a bid to help the nation to close the electrification gap. Now, having in mind that such loan to the nation are always single digits in most cases because they are concessional loans. So the nation takes the loan on behalf of the people, let me put it that way. And the nation now disburses the loan as grants to developers. So some structure it in a way that that grant takes care of about 60%, 70% of the required capex. So the developer will not pass all the costs into developing his tariff. So let's say the cost is 100 naira and you've accessed 70 naira from a grant, let's say M300, right? And the remaining 30 naira, you have to source it as a developer. So it's the 30 naira you are passing into the tariff, not the 100 naira. So if you are typically generating an energy in a year, let's say, just a number, let's say 100, right? 30 over 100 will be 0.3. That's 30 kobo. It's cheaper than if I had passed 100. 100 over 100 will be one naira. So in a way, all these development partners fund help to bring down the cost or the tariff that is being passed down to a normal Nigeria or a rural community dwellers.
But you know, the first question a normal Nigerian has now is, you said the loan is being taken on their behalf.
Yeah.
How are they paying back this loan?
So, because the nation generates high GR and all other things, right? Like Nigeria, we are heavily dependent on oil. Diversification is happening. Agriculture is booming. A lot is happening within the economy. So, all these are meant to be used to pay off those loans. And it's way cheaper because it's the responsibility of the government to electrify its people, right? So ordinarily, the government should have extended the grid down to the rural communities. So without anybody paying for it until it comes. So the development partners is saying, because we know to expand the grid to rural area will take a lot of money, let's give you a quick win. A quick win is mini grid. You give the money out as grants so that the rural dwellers can actually pay. So when the rural dweller pay the developer, over time, grid will still extend to that area. But we are not waiting for the grid. We are closing the access before the grid arrives. And in paying back, the nation will pay back because ordinarily, the nation should have structure or plan or budget for expanding the grid, right? And it's cheaper for them than expanding the grid. And it's also quicker for them than expanding the grid. So for me, it's a win-win-win. Like they will say, it's a 3-win.
Yeah,
it's a win-win-win on all sides.
Yeah, while I understand you,
yeah,
I still want you to pinpoint exactly the governments. They are the ones to give back that loan to World Bank, AFDB.
Yep.
What's the plan to get the actual fund? Is it just, okay, if we do this, we know it's going to lead to economic boom, we know it's going to lead to more taxes being paid. Is that the plan, or is there some specific way that they're getting that specific money back?
So there are no specifics. So one is not expected, in as much as I know, let me put that caveat there, right? There are no specifics that this money is meant to pay this loan, this money is meant to pay. But in our budgetary allocation every year, you will see loan repayments as part of it. Yeah. Which of the loans you cannot pinpoint, but it's structured in a way. And most of these loans are long term, 20 years, 30 years. So you have forever to pay as a nation. And it won't really burden you because when you spread it over the years, it becomes quite small for you to pay back. So yes, they get back from taxes because when economic activity starts, the rural dwellers will pay tax and it's cascade down to the federal government purse.
You know, what I just wanted to debunk is, you know, the average person listening, perhaps in rural areas, they might have the impression that
they are not paying back.
No, they might have the impression that I'm owing. You know, I
they're not
have to, you know, get this money back. So you understand now that it's structured in a way that you don't have to actually bring back money.
You just need to pay your tariff.
Exactly. So thank you so much for breaking that down. So I guess the next question is sustainability.
Okay.
A common problem, maybe we could say it's an African issue. When things are done, you do commissions, it looks good and great, but go back there a year later, things don't look quite the same. What is the plan or what is the idea about sustaining these projects so that we're not taking one step forward
and two steps backwards? Yeah, I know it's always a concern. I've listened on global platform where they always raise that concern, especially towards Africa, how sustainable is whatever they are doing, right? But I think that there are two key legs that sustainability of any mini grid is standing on. The first thing is the operational discipline of the developer, and then also your community engagement strategy. Now, in the operational discipline, because you got a chunk of the capex as grants over the years, because all these equipment have a lifespan, some 10 years, some 20 years, so you must replace them, right? So it's expected that as a developer, you are very efficient in how you do your thing. You are very efficient in your operation. And operational efficiency starts from how you manage your load, how you reduce the loss, your metering, right? So that you can recoup both the return on investment and return of investment. When you have that, you can plan on your replacement of assets, right? In a way, when the developer is not disciplined, then it won't become sustainable. And when you engage the community rightly, especially in training and empowerment and all that, then they look after your assets. Because vandalism is also another problem. So they look after your assets to ensure that it's not vandalized. Then it becomes sustainable.
We've actually run out of time now for this segment. So I just want to round up in a few seconds. What is your projection for the future of grid, mini-grid systems?
For me, mini-grid is no longer that small thing that is happening somewhere, right? REA presently has about, they have a plan to build about 1,350 mini-grid across the nation, right? So mini-grid is becoming the bedrock for electrification. So the grid will arrive and meet a mini-grid.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a very positive projection. We do hope it turns out that way. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. That's how we end this segment of the program. We'll take a report now on some projects around the country and how they're impacting lives. When we return, we will be delving more into the Nigerian context specifically and sustainability. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Around the world, renewable energy is shaping how communities power their lives, offering cleaner, more sustainable alternatives in the face of climate change and energy poverty. From Asia to sub Saharan Africa, off grid solutions and decentralized systems are helping close long standing electricity gaps, particularly in underserved regions. Over the past year, Nigeria has made measurable strides in renewable energy access, especially in rural communities that have historically lacked reliable power. From solar mini grids powering households in Nasarawa and Niger states to renewable energy systems supporting local clinics and markets, these developments increasingly reflect not just progress but data backed impact. At the center of many of these interventions is the Rural Electrification Agency, the REA, which continues to play a leading role in coordinating and implementing national electrification efforts from design and deployment to performance tracking. Through initiatives like the Nigeria Electrification Project and the $750 million DARES program supported by the World Bank and African Development Bank, REA is working with private developers and local stakeholders to deploy thousands of decentralized energy systems, each tied to indicators like household connections, uptime, and productive use. In communities like Rafin Zurufi, where residents are said to have gone without power for decades, the solar mini grid now makes up for the deficit. And in Rubochi and Ikwa, also in Abuja, the mini grids are reportedly making a difference in daily living. Beyond rural communities, the Energizing Education Program, also implemented by REA, is transforming learning environments. Over 30 federal universities and teaching hospitals, including the Yakubu Gowon University, formerly known as the University of Abuja, have already benefited or are in line to receive solar or hybrid systems, each installation supported by tools to monitor performance, usage, and long-term sustainability. From underserved villages to academic campuses, Nigeria's renewable energy story is no longer about infrastructure alone. It's about systems that are installed, monitored, and made to last. Progress isn't just being promised, it's being powered, tracked, and scaled. Welcome back. Now, before the break, we looked at how mini grids are reshaping access to electricity around the world. Now, we shift the focus to Nigeria, where the Rural Electrification Agency is at the forefront of delivering off-grid solutions to communities that have been in need of power. But beyond installation and commissioning, the real work begins. Keeping these systems running, making sure they serve local needs, and ensuring communities have the tools to sustain them. In this segment, we unpack the local realities, how mini grids are being maintained, what models are working, and what it really takes to turn access into long-term impact. Let's examine the sustainability side of Nigeria's off-grid journey. Joining me to tackle this is Emmanuel Maradesa. He is a seasoned solar engineer and renewable energy specialist. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you. It's
you.
been a long time coming, and interestingly, one of the reasons we've had to push this forward is because we've been so busy on these sites that we're about to speak about.
Exactly.
So we want to go straight into the matter. You have hands-on experience. We're not talking theoretically here. You've been around these communities, installing these mini grids, ensuring it stays after.
Exactly.
So we'll start with a basic question here now, which is, what makes a mini grid project, technically viable for off-grid communities, and also what early assessments are most critical?
All right. Thank you very much for having me on this show. And so to start with, mini grids are actually in communities in locations where they don't have access to power, and this could be due to several reasons. Maybe poor access. Poor road access, or maybe they're even just far from the main town, and even people that are even in town, I mean, they don't have enough power supply yet, not to talk of those who are in the remote areas and all of that. So one of the key things to consider, I mean, one of the key factors that make a mini-grid viable is properly sizing the system. If it's not one size fits all, so you have to do your due diligence by checking what the energy demand of that community is going to be. And then once you're able to get that right, you're able to put in the right system that meets the need of that community. So there is this feasibility assessment that needs to be done. And if you don't get it right from that place, I mean, every other thing will eventually go wrong. So yeah. So your feasibility assessment would help you to get a proper system size, proper system design, and then the right technology to be deployed will be guided based on that. So yeah.
That works. And so let's talk to now some specific projects. If you can tell us how this go about. For instance, the REA commissioned the 440 kWp interconnected mini grid for 4 communities in Untangle, LGA, Cross River. So what would you say are the main engineering challenges in linking rural communities? Because this particular project involves a number of communities together for this mini grid project.
All right, so linking mini-grids together is not actually a challenge if this is planned from the get-go. But if it's not planned from the initial phase and then probably just feel like, oh, there's a mini-grid here already, there's another community nearby that is not connected, let's try to connect them. If you want to do that along the line, you may end up not giving adequate power to the other community. And that's because there will be voltage drop along the line. So, and also, I think I've been involved in some projects where we want to merge 2 communities together. And then if these communities on their own are not in terms, that's going to be a bottleneck on its own. So you need to be able to, like I said, from the initial phase, you don't just build a mini grid and then now start trying to do add-ons. Do your proper feasibility, do all your due diligence.
Going to the communities to ask questions.
Exactly. So you need to have dialogue with the number of communities that you want to have together. They also want to have preference for, it has to be situated in our own community. There's that challenge. So it should be domiciled here, it should be domiciled there and all of that. And that's because wherever it's domiciled, that's where you have the main workforce that will be used during that project and all of that. And they also want to claim that this project is in our community. So some of those things, they are not really technical.
Sorry to cut you short.
Okay.
What you just said, it touches on another subject. You said most of the people there will be part of the project. Does the deployment of mini-grid also lead to employment to host communities?
Definitely. It adds that initial economic impact on the community, and then there's also a residual impact, again, economic impact on the community at the long run. But at the initial phase, where you are doing the menial job, you need the labor and all of that, you need manpower. So community gets a lot of benefits in that phase. So as I was saying, we need to be able to find a suitable location that would ensure there is even distribution of power. So if that is not gotten right, I mean, it's not going to, the project is going to be, is not going to achieve the purpose.
So I don't want to confuse our viewers. So if you can give us a sneak peek of what is the engineering requirements to pick that place? Is it just about distance, or are you looking at maybe the type of soil or the ground? What are the considerations there?
All right, so it's not really distant. I mean, it's not really soil, rather. That can be sorted with civil designs and all of that. So there are approaches to that. So it's more of the distance. And also there is more solar irradiation in some locations than the other. So those are the things I need to check for. And in other places, you may have congested areas where you may not get enough land space that you need to deploy a certain project, or maybe you have high-rising buildings around that may eventually be casting shadow over time and all of that. So that I need to get a place that is free from such encumbrance at the end of the day. So getting the good location would help to power enough communities at the same time, and then you'll be able, and then having a proper community engagement would also help to get however number of communities may be, get their buy-in before you embark on such projects.
All right, fair enough. So let's move to another kind of project now. There's the Energizing Education project where it involves powering schools and communities what goes into such a project, And then another aspect is just both for this schooling project and the one I mentioned before that's connecting different communities. What's the sustainability afterwards? When you've done your work, they see you coming, installing, planning and all of that. What happens when you leave?
All right. So to start with the energizing education part, I think I was part of one of the phases that ended some time ago, and I mean we've all been students at one point or the other, and even some still schooling. We know the effects that power could have on education. Students are ready to study. There's no power. They want to do practicals. There's no power. I mean, being an engineering student, I can really relate with that. There are instances where you need to do practicals and then you need light for that.
Yeah.
The generator is not available. The grid is not available. This innovation, makes it easier. Students are sure to have power during the day. They are sure to have power during the day from the sun.
Yes.
And then if for any reason there are backup generators to ensure that these facilities, it's one thing for government to invest in facilities to ensure that students are able to get state-of-the-art approach of learning. And then there's another part of you getting the resources to power those facilities. So if government invests in those facilities to ensure that, okay, these equipments are available, but there's no power, then at the end of the day, it's of no use. So energizing those stuff, creating power is the first step to ensuring that quality education is being delivered. Students are able to learn and study under conducive environment. Lecturers and tutors are able to also deliver their own trainings and lectures in a conducive environment. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a win-win for the government and the student, because when the students are able to come out and then at their best, you're able to give back to the community at the end of the day. So that's very, very important. And beyond just the projects, students are also trained during these projects.
I was interested in that. I was going to get to that.
I trained some students. I was privileged to go to UniMed, I went to Uni Abuja. Then I have colleagues that also went to other institutions across the country to train students. So we trained them before the project became energized, before they started powering the community and the schools and all of that. We trained them, and even while the main works were going on, the students still had the privilege to come back to site to see what is going on. At the end of the day, some of these students were also absorbed to intern in places. So beyond that, after the project is being completed, they will still have some of them that will also be part of the maintenance to know what's going on, because it's one thing to deploy a project, and that thing to ensure that the project is sustainable, and that's by ensuring proper maintenance. The same thing applies in rural areas where you have maybe one community working alone or multiple communities connected together. So you need to have that maintenance culture. And like I mentioned the other time about workforce, you use the same people in that community, you train them, you give them the necessary tools that they need. They may not have the best, they may not have that knowledge prior to that time, but you try them as possible, baby step, to ensure that they can do some little things on their own. So yeah, that's the importance of trying to work with the locals as well, because it's going to be cheaper for you to maintain the sites. They understand their persons, the people, they understand the culture, and they're able to guide others to also ensure that the energy is being utilized for the right reasons and all of that. So I would say that maintenance culture is very, very key to ensuring the sustainability of these systems, of this power infrastructure, and then training the locals around is also very, very important. Yeah.
So, is there any aspect of perhaps remuneration or then I heard once during a commissioning of the RA where it was said that this is not done to be free. This is when it's done in communities so that people get the value for it, and it's almost as though, just as we have with the AEDC and other distributors, they also pay for their electricity. What's that like?
Exactly. So the mini grid there's a regulation for mini grid operation, and just like we have the disco, the AEDC, Enugu Disco, and the likes of them, there is tariff that we sign with these communities, And this is not something that we enforce on them. We dialogue with them. And they are also approached to calculating the tariff as well, which is to be approved by regulating by NEC. So before we start at all, we show them the PPA, which is Power Purchase Agreement. This is going to be the tariff over time. These are the terms and conditions. The community understands, they sign, and then they agree to that. So that is how they are being. So then there's meter that is being installed for everyone. So it's whatever you recharge is what you'll be able to use, and nobody's going to be extorting from you to say, no, this is 1 month, you have to pay XYZ. It's not a flat rate. You pay, you recharge whatever you want to use. So that has helped to mitigate the issue of you are being extorted. And another thing that is very critical is when something is free, there is that tendency of abuse.
Yeah.
When people don't have meters in their houses, can see them leave their ACs, water heaters, leave them on and then go out, come back in the night, and then everything is still running. But the moment people are being metered, you realize that all of those were curtailed. You don't need light at the moment to turn it off. You don't leave your charger in the sockets, even if you don't need it. As little as that could be, not to talk of water heater, ACs and light that are significant energy equipment. So metering them helps to ensure that energy is being used for the right purposes.
All right, that's fair enough. So just to put a bunch of questions together due to time, what are some of the impacts you've seen in the communities, after this project has become running? And then the issue of monitoring. Yes, you might not be involved. You've mentioned Unimade and the other places you've been. Obviously you're here now. So what no one expects you to now, move your life and then be there. So what are monitoring aspects, especially because we know a lot of these projects are funded. Sometimes the AFDB is combining with the government, World Bank and all of that. What's in place to ensure that monitoring afterwards, and what are the impacts that you've seen?
All right. So the impact is always visible from the moment you power the distribution line. The joy, the happiness on everyone's faces and all of that. One that strikes during the last commissioning we did was, before the project was completed, you see children roaming around late in the night. Come back from school, they are not busy with their studies, just doing things unproductive. Yeah, they are kids, they need to play, but at that ungodly hour, you shouldn't find kids outside. So the moment you commissioned and then we're just going around checking to be sure that everything is working fine, you saw children gathered in their room, in their sitting room, maybe watching educative programs or just busy in their own house, not just roaming around anymore that could have exposed them to reptiles or any form of any stuff like that. So that's in the first place. It's a very, very significant impact that I would like to speak to. Aside that, we see economic impacts. People that have freezers, and then probably due to the cost of fuel or even access to buying the fuel, because in most of those places, what they buy is black markets. They don't have access to go into the filling station directly, and then the cost and all of that. So you can't get cold drink, you can't get things like you want, you can't store your perishables and all of that. So with the development of mini grid in some of these communities, we realized that more of these businesses were able to thrive because now there's access to power. So that has actually helped. And then another thing also that we try to do from our own end is when you don't empower them, they may not use the energy for right purpose. So we give them productive equipment like cassava milling machines and the like. So that helps them to also reduce the cost of burning diesel or petrol, and then they use the light during the day when it's available to do the agro processing. So that in the long way has helped to also boost the economic of the community. In some areas, again, where they don't have good network infrastructure, when you get there, you can't make calls and all of that. But with power getting to some of those communities, it's easier for telecoms company to come in to deploy their mast, knowing fully well that where there's power, more population will come from neighboring town and all of that. So those are some of the impacts that I've seen so far.
All right. What about the monitoring?
So for the monitoring, I think I mentioned them earlier that we have metering system. Whatever OEM the technology want to deploy, the technologies themselves have their own equipment. They have their own monitoring facility that you can use to monitor online. So you have your CCTVs as well to check real time what's going on, and then you have also your meter to know are people using the lights, what's going on, and then the equipment itself are also on the cloud. You can see data of what happened yesterday, what happened weeks ago, and what's happening at the moment. So you can always do your data analysis to know your system is performing as expected or is performing below expectation, and then you can then curtail whatever the challenge may be. So the people on site that are also trained, the locals that you trained, are also trained to be able to understand whenever you tell them, oh, this is what we are seeing on the data, they know what to check, and then you're able to get the feedback that would help to take a wise decision on whatever the situation may be.
All right. Due to time, if you can just quickly round up this one. How does this connect or combine with the regular main grid systems? For instance, the communities we're talking about, are they only powered now by off-grid systems, or is it that they are combining it? How would that work? And then also, what is your recommendations for scaling this across the country? Say we want to get the next 10 million Nigerians on grid through this off-grid or mini-grid systems. What needs to be done?
Okay, so most of the sites I currently operate are off-grid completely, and then we have some in the pipeline that are interconnected. So I have a knowledge of how they all work. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but the goal is everyone has to be powered. So yeah, in places where they don't have grid at all, it's easier for us to deploy off-grid system where they are not, where there is no existing grid infrastructure before. It's easier because there is no bottleneck of having to discuss with the existing disco that operates them, that franchise area and all of that. So it's easier for us to deploy in those places, and we really even can't even depend on, the interconnected is just because there's an existing grid there before. In some of the interconnected areas, the grid is still not coming at all. So it's still off-grid. It's still off-grid, but because there's that existing infrastructure, that's why they just term them as interconnected. So I think the government is actually trying in their own way at the moment. There are a lot of persons now that have signed grants under this DES program, and then many more are actually still on the way. So with this sort of program, it's going to be easier for everyone to, it's going to be easier for RESCOs to plug into this program and then deploy more sites, in the next couple of years.
So thank you so much for that. You've really broken it down and helped us understand a bit more what's going on in the communities, especially as regards how renewable energy and off-grid systems could help in, fixing the energy issues we're having. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Amadine. Thank you very much.
So that's how we round off the program for today. It's been a robust one. We've spoken to a number of persons here to really break down what's happening with the mini-grid deployments across the country, how we're relating it to how things are going on outside the country, and also in a bid to reach our sustainable development goals, particularly in respect to renewable energy. So please join us next time on Untangle, where we break down more issues, more projects that are ongoing, more things that might be bothering you that you need answers to. See you next time. Bye for now. I am Amadine Obere.